guys, I'd like to introduce you to my newest tool. Just got this about a month ago, LT15 by Woodmizer. And I've obviously already done some work, but really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. You can see just the amount of mess it creates, and I'll show you a little later some of the product I've already put out with it. But it's got a Kohler Pro, Command Pro, yeah, get it there for you. Command Pro 18 horse, and I checked the oil, and but it was ready to go right from the guy that I bought it from. Bought it from a guy about 40 minutes away. Went and picked it up on my trailer. Oh, we got the Woodmizer LT15. There's George. Just went and picked it up in Maple Crest, New York, which is actually Wyndham, pretty much Wyndham. Let's pick that bad boy up today. But yeah, it's been a freaking great tool so far. Really enjoying running it, learning a lot. Has the fuel, I think it's a 5-gallon fuel tank it came with, as well as the water lube, which I currently am running some Joy soap. I think it's just some off-brand soap, and I also run a little pine saw just because I occasionally cut pine logs. I've been doing a lot of hardwood red oak, but it's been a great saw. It takes a 158-inch blade, 1.25 inch thick, 0.45 I believe is the thickness, and 1.25 inch depth on the blade. Sap on it, but it's been a great machine so far. So when I picked this saw up, it came with the standard 3 lengths of track. It'll accommodate, I think, a 17-foot 6-inch cut, so you can put an 18-foot log on there, or a 16-foot log. Yeah, 16-foot log. And I'm seriously considering getting another bed section. They're about $700, $800 for another 6-foot. I think it's 6'7" bed section, but it just allow you to do more projects. I've already been asked by a few different people to do decking on their trailer, and this one guy wants 18-foot boards, 2 by 10 by 18-foot white oak for his trailer. He doesn't want any breaks in the boards, so can't do 12s and 6s or anything like that, or 10s and 8s. He wants 18-footers, so that would require the longer bed. The cut size 28-inch log. It can handle the cut can be a 22.5, although I have cut 22 3/4. You can see the manual adjustment there. Just a handle, pretty simple. And this is, you actually have to monitor that quite a bit when you're making cuts. So this handle, when the machine is running and the blade is tensioned by this handle over here, this handle right here, as you come down, you see the throttle cable engages. It'll automatically throttle up, and it's important that you don't just jam it in. It could stall the motor out, especially if it's cold, but it's good, just good practice on the clutch just to ease it in. So ease in the engagement. Also, you'll see here that the blade tensioner, right now the blade tension is off. You can see as I engage it, it starts to the cam action, and that's fully engaged. And a lot of people, you'll see here the end of this bolt should be where that the orange is on that bushing, and that blade is tensioned properly. And you'll be able to tell. Your blade will be tracking a little weird if it's not tensioned properly, but right out of the gate, this guy had it set up pretty well. I checked everything out. Never leave your blade tensioned, by the way. I think several people have already mentioned that, but the blade has that memory that built in, and that steel will remember that shape, and that will give you wonky cuts, and it's just not good practice. So every time I'm done cutting, I will automatically just, as soon as I know I'm not going to be cutting for even 10 or 15 minutes, I'll just take the blade tension off. It takes a few seconds to do it, and it just keeps your bushings and everything else. Looks like the wasps are starting to make home here. I'm gonna have to get rid of those. They're flying around me. Yeah, the blade tension, you just it's good to leave it off. You can see here, this is loose. Oop. Bugs are attacking me. So one thing I noticed that was weird right off the bat is these I think they're B57 wear belts for your give your traction for your blade. This is your idler belt, and then you have your dry belt over here, your dry pulley, sorry. And the belts, I noticed they just get kind of dry sawdust on them and whatnot. I just noticed that even with the dry sawdust and everything, I took them off the old blades, and there was some nick marks. I think the blade had come off a few times on the previous owner. As you can kind of see from the door, he had a couple times where the blade came off. I don't know if it was just wasn't tracking properly for him or whatnot, but the actual motor drive, so sorry about that. Here's the actual clutch behind here and the drive pinion, and then you've got your tensioner right here. Just keeps tension on that drive as it drives the drive pulley. The blade will go in a counterclockwise fashion, and you never really want to operate it without the doors closed. Obviously, I'll show you how they close. Very simple. They close, and they just have a simple rubber latch, kind of like you'd see on a Jeep hood. Very simple. So those B57 belts I was talking about, I replaced those. It was just, I thought it was a good idea. Just went ahead and replaced them. They were only about 13 bucks a piece, and just wanted to get the best performance out of this machine. So replacing those, a few belts, and I got a new 10-pack of blades. I think I went with the double hard blades, and they were around $22 a piece, I think. So spent around $300 on the belts and the blades, but it's a worthwhile investment, especially if you invest in the Resharp program, which I have not yet utilized, but I plan to. As you can see here, the height adjustment, it's pretty simple. Each one of these notches is a 1/16 of an inch. As you can see here, one notch equals 1/16. So one full turn is 1 inch down. 1/2 turn, I apologize. 1/2 turn is 1 inch down. So full turn would obviously be 2 inches down, as you can see the adjustment. Now the scale on this I don't find is super accurate. I just need to adjust it. That's more my problem. But you'll notice the gray, silver, and then it goes into yellow. The reason for that, if it's not abundantly clear, is the clearance from the top of the bed to the dogs that hold the log, or the stops that hold the log in place, are 10 inches above the bed. So once you get into the yellow zone, if your dogs are fully, or your stops are fully up, you'll have what happened to the previous owner. Hasn't happened to me yet because I've been very mindful of it, but you can see clearly he hit the blade into these stops, and I can see how that could happen after milling all day. You get tired and you're just not thinking. So something to think about for new sawyers that haven't used one of these machines in the past. One thing about this fuel tank and this engine, at least on my machine, I find it to be very fuel efficient. This is a gas engine, it's not diesel, but I'll get a lot of run time out of that 5 gallons of gas I've noticed that I did probably 4 or 5 smaller logs, 12-inch, 10-inch diameter, but then I did 3 monster 29-inch, 28-inch diameter, down to 24-inch diameter red oaks, and really just refilled the tank after doing all that. So I got a lot of run time, at least probably a good 10 hours out of that. One thing I'd like to quickly point out is you can see here you have your hot muffler. It's not hot right now, but you have your hot muffler running, and the water lube line right here. The previous owner had it routed behind this post this way, coming this way, and it just would contact the muffler at certain, when you had the thing set at about 16 inches, 14 inches, it would be rubbing against the muffler, and this is where I put the tape on because it just burned right through it, because it's just a regular rubber hose. And so I put the tape on it just to fix the hose leak, and I rerouted it just around the outside here, and haven't had an issue since. Getting the water controlled, speaking of water lube, getting the water lube adjustment correctly is a little bit of a nuisance. It's not too bad, but here's the valve right here. So you'll start off by opening this up either fully or partially. I like to open it about a quarter or halfway. It's just a simple turn. Half turn is a fully open, so I turn it about a quarter turn, and then what I do is I use this adjustment, and usually only need to open it about maybe a eighth of a turn. If you open it a full quarter turn, it's just flowing, and you'll go through that 5 gallons of water in about 2 logs or less. So just kind of get the feel for the flow by how your blade's performing. You get a good idea. If you're cutting a 20-inch wide cut, you're gonna want a lot more flow than if you're just cutting through a 2-inch or 3-inch cut, cleaning up some boards. You almost don't even need any lube at that point. This machine doesn't have the power drive. It has just a push handle right here, and it also has the crank. I find the crank works really well if you want to have a nice controlled smooth action. It's just a simple rope along the bed. Goes down to the bed. There's a rope that runs along. Just goes along like this, and it disengages as soon as you disengage this handle. So engage, disengage, and it allows you to just push as well. What I find best, I usually, through the smaller stuff, I like to just push with my hands. Some of the bigger stuff like the oak, it's easy to control the speed and kind of get a really good feel for what the blade and the machine's doing. Obviously listening to the motor, listen to the engine to hear what it's doing is key, and you can kind of hear the blade. You just kind of get a feel for it pretty quickly if you if you have any sense to you. But this works pretty well. Really, I haven't found any situations where I've needed anything more than that. It's not really labor intensive. It kind of just pushes it through nicely. It's pushing it through from the bottom, as opposed to, if you just push from the handles up here, I noticed that, you kind of get a little more rocky action, because even though this machine has a wheel and a post on this side, you still can have some movement if you're not careful as it rolls along the track. You see it vibrates just a tiny bit. Can just be annoying. It doesn't really affect your cuts, I've noticed, especially when you're just talking about rough cut lumber. Once you put it through the planer and the joiner, it's kind of how it goes away. Not kind of inconsequential, but something to consider. Just seems like a nice smooth delivery system for actually moving the machine. Moving back around to the front of the machine just to give you a little bit better idea on the things that I checked when I first bought it. And this is from very limited experience, but I checked that these pulleys were they spun freely, spun okay, these guides, bushings, and the bearings seem to be really good. No play whatsoever in them. And the operator, the previous owner, ran a cut through one log for me just to show me how the machine worked, and it worked flawlessly. As you can see, I don't have the most level driveway on this in the turnaround, so I had to use the leveling feet pretty extensively on one end. That side's about 8 inches off the ground. This side slopes all the way over to about 2.5, 3 inches off the ground. They work relatively effectively. A little bit of a pain in the butt to adjust, but what I found was helpful is I just grabbed my tractor with the forks, picked up on the not level side, and got it to the point where the bed was level, at least in the Y direction, and then the X direction so in the Y direction I had the forks just under it to get it level, and then I would let out the feet until they touched the ground and just had a tiny bit of tension on them, let off on the forks, checked it, locked everything down, did the same kind of procedure for the X direction. So you can just see some of the waste over here. There's my tractor with the forks. A lot of work to cut up logs, but it's very, very satisfying. Well guys, yeah, I really love this machine. It's been great, and sorry about that. Machine's been great. It's been a lot of fun. I'm already making some money off of it, selling some rough cut lumber. Got hooked up with a guy up in Albany to get a few logs. He delivered some logs. I cut it all up. I had a guy like the next day wanted all the red oak from me. So you know, with just a little bit of time on weekends and some late nights, you can get quite a bit of work done with this machine in a few hours. I mean, it's definitely labor intensive. This machine, you know, requires manual cant hook to move the logs. I'll show you some of that here in a later video, but just kind of want to introduce you to my new Woodmizer LT 15. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. Hope to post a lot more videos in the future. Thanks for watching.